Tonight, we're going to try to get something new done. And trust me, this one ain't going to be easy because we're going up against some really big power. We've done this before, we can do it again, but that's what we're in for. Tonight, we're going to present the results of an investigation your environmental research team has been undertaking for the last number of months. And we're going to ask you to support a call for a performance audit of Veolia, the for-profit company that is managing our wastewater treatment plants. First, let us tell you who's involved and how serious this is. The Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District, MMSD for short, is an independent, quasi-governmental body that oversees our 2 wastewater treatment facilities. These facilities treat our sewage and our stormwater before it goes back into the lake, and the lake is the source of our drinking water. That's why MMSD is so important. MMSD is governed by a board of 11 commissioners. There they are up on the screens. 7 commissioners are appointed by the mayor of Milwaukee and approved by the Common Council. 4 of the commissioners are elected by the Milwaukee County mayors whose communities send their sewage into MMSD. These are the commissioners. You'll see them here. These are the people. We've met with almost all of them individually. Kevin Schaefer is the executive director of MMSD and has served in that position for the last 25 years. Second organization to be aware of, Veolia. Veolia is a huge international for-profit company based in Paris, France. Veolia has been managing the 2 MMSD water treatment facilities for the past 18 years. They've been running things for 18 years. A new 10-year contract worth about $700 million will begin in 2028. Veolia and another company, Jacobs Solutions, are each bidding for the contract. That's how much big money is involved here. By this fall, the Board of Commissioners, the 11 people, are to vote on who will operate the facilities for the next 10 years. That's why this is an important moment. There's a lot at stake, not just money, but the protection of our families, our homes, and our precious lake. Now, tonight, I want you to listen carefully to the information we have gathered from confidential interviews with 16 current and former MMSD and Veolia employees. Judge for yourself. We have heard a troubling pattern of mismanagement by Veolia. We can't verify everything. We're not experts. But we believe we have found enough to warrant hiring an independent third-party expert to do an audit of Veolia's performance. After we have presented everything from the 7 people that you see in front of you, we're going to ask you if you agree. And if you do, then we have some steps to take. Brandon Pinion is now going to open up and explain the investigation. Thank you so far.
Hello, I'm Brandon Pinion, a new volunteer leader in Common Ground in the environmental research team. Thank you. In my day job, I work with Kevin Kane and Green Homeowners United, helping reduce carbon emissions into our atmosphere. Thank you. By doing energy efficiency upgrades for property owners. One of my passions is working to protect this precious planet upon which we live. Amen. Our investigation began in September of 2023. when Common Ground received a whistleblower letter from an anonymous source. The author asked Common Ground to investigate the issues he was bringing to our attention. In 2023, Common Ground was in the midst of our campaign to reform the housing authority of the city of Milwaukee, and we were not able to pursue this. In late 2025, we formed an environmental research team that took on the investigation you will hear about tonight. Before introducing our whistleblower, whom we uncovered during our investigation and who will bravely come forward tonight, let me read two important quotes from his letter. Quote, MMSD and Veolia haven't been able to run its 2 treatment plants at capacity and meet contract and permit effluent requirements for any significant rainstorm since 2017. Oh boy. Think about what that means. If the plants haven't been able to handle a single storm since 2017, where exactly is all that water going? I'll tell you where. Quote, this unprecedented reduction in plant treatment capacity has resulted in tens of millions of gallons of sewage flowing into Lake Michigan, where we get our drinking water. The person you're about to hear from retired after 19 years with MMSD in order to devote himself to caring full-time for his wife who was very ill. I will introduce him to you through an excerpt of a proclamation signed by Mayor Cavalier Johnson himself and given to him upon his retirement as a high-level employee at MMSD. It says, he has most recently served as the intergovernmental coordinator of the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District, passing the Dredge Material Management Facility Act to safely store contaminated river sediment and paving the way for one of the largest environmental cleanups in the history of our region, as well as established and implemented a new watershed program that preserved woodlands, flatlands, and ravine systems to reduce future risk of flooding. Amen. Now, let me ask Steve Jacquart to come forward and present his testimony.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Steve Jacquart. I was the intergovernmental coordinator at the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District, MMSD, for almost 19 years. I retired 3 years ago, and I'm the person who is the whistleblower who reached out to Common Ground. The decision to go public with the information showing the mismanagement of our sewage system has been a tough and emotional one for me. I enjoyed working at MMSD and have met many friends, great friends through the agency. Some people there may prefer that these problems be kept quiet and not shared with the public. But I keep thinking about the safety of the many thousands of people who enjoy our beaches and waterways. I think about how we get our drinking water from Lake Michigan. I'm standing here because I strongly believe that taxpayers have a right to know about any actions that threaten public health and the environment. Amen. I also believe, and this is important, that it's extremely important for MMSD commissioners to fully understand what caused the unprecedented problems at the 2 wastewater treatment facilities before they vote on the next $700 million 10-year operating contract. Now, I chose to work with Common Ground on this campaign because you already have a community partnership with MMSD, right? Through the Every Drop Counts water conservation program. I want to thank Common Ground. I want to thank all of you for making these very important water quality issues and public health issues front and center. Amen. I worked in the mayor's office in City Hall in Milwaukee for many years in the John Norquist administration before being hired at MMSD in June of 2004. It's right after a rainstorm flooded the Milwaukee region. My first big assignment at the district was to staff Mayor Tom Barrett's MMSD Audit Committee, which held several weeks of public testimony and issued a report with recommendations on how to reform MMSD and better protect our water resources. Tonight, I'm going public to raise some very serious problems facing MMSD. I'm speaking out to ensure that MMSD's commission has the opportunity to thoroughly investigate the mismanagement of our wastewater treatment facilities. These problems need to be brought out and addressed in public before MMSD commissioners select which private company will run our regional sewage system under the next operating contract. Unfortunately, government agencies often react to public criticism by circling the wagons and getting defensive or fighting back. I think that a much better approach for dealing with big problems is to get the information out to the public, get it all out, and then solve the problem. Amen. I'm appealing to the good people at MMSD and everyone in this room to take this approach. Since 2008, Veolia Water Milwaukee has been contracted to operate and maintain MMSD's regional wastewater treatment system. Beginning in 2016, multiple factors led to a massive breakdown with processing biosolids at the Jones Island and South Shore wastewater treatment facilities. Biosolids are the organic materials derived from treated sewage sludge through the wastewater treatment process. It's what we turn into Milorganite. You know. So this breakdown in biosolids removal and disposal has resulted in reduced wastewater treatment capacity, increasing the risk of sewage overflows and basement backups during rainstorms. Unfortunately, this reduced treatment capacity can also increase the volume of sewage that is released into our rivers and Lake Michigan when we have overflows. Now, just go off script a little bit. With the last overflow that we had, it was 2.7 billion gallons. During that storm, South Shore wastewater treatment plant, that's in Oak Creek, was only running at 83% capacity. That was just the peak capacity. It was below that for a lot of that storm. And that's according to the spokesperson for MMSD said that on public radio. What was also reported in the journal Sentinel during that storm is that this overflow lasted 112 hours. That's more than 4.5 days. So when you translate that reduced capacity at South Shore of 83%, and you multiply that by 4.5 days, that it comes out to well over 200 million gallons of treatment capacity that was unavailable during this last overflow.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Another water quality and public health threat resulting from these biosolids management troubles is that the treated wastewater being released into the lake is dirtier or more polluted. As pointed out in chart number 10 here, and this is from the Wisconsin Policy Forum. They're a local think tank, basically nonpartisan group that writes about government and policy. They issued a report that MMSD paid for, and it's called Testing the Waters, Should MMSD's Privatization Framework Be Revisited, published in September 2022. And what this shows is that MMSD is paying increased fees or fines each year to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for declining water quality. The problem is so pervasive that the MMSD Commission has voted to allow Veolia to violate its contractual standards for treated wastewater as a measure to reduce the risk of sewage overflows and save money for the rest of the contract period, which ends in 2028. And online right now is a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel story that quotes the person who oversees the contract for Veolia. And we looked at that chart, what that means is more bacteria is going into the lake. He commented that this change in, what happened with their processing isn't harming Lake Michigan, even though more bacteria and potentially human pathogens are going into the lake. And that story's online in the Milwaukee Journal right now. So as I said, in layman's term, what does that chart mean? It means that the treated wastewater MMSD discharges into Lake Michigan every day contains higher levels of bacteria. And this has been happening since around 2016 when this massive biosolids management problem began. The statements I just outlined are all supported in public documents, including MMSD commission documents, contract amendments, engineering technical reports, plant capacity memos, and letters. Some of this information, Common Ground has obtained through Freedom of Information requests. Thank you, Common Ground. Having worked at MSD, I can tell you it has many, many more public documents that would bolster these statements. But this information has never been released to the public or presented to the MMSD Commission in a coherent manner. Tonight, I join Common Ground in requesting that MMSD conduct an independent third-party performance audit of Veolia's management of the regional sewage system before voting on the next operating contract. Amen. There are many great, talented people who work at or used to work at MMSD and Veolia. I know that many of these workers would like to speak up, but are afraid to do so. Conducting an independent third-party performance audit would give workers the opportunity to tell us what they think about the management of our wastewater system. It's absolutely critical that these perspectives be documented and shared directly with the great, talented people on the MMSD Commission before it votes on the next operating contract. In some ways, I feel like I still work for MMSD. So my advice to them is that when the contract documents with the next private operator get signed, sign those documents here in this room and invite the public. Amen. Tell the world how your decision will ensure that the two wastewater treatment facilities once again run at their maximum rated capacities while routinely meeting contract effluent limits. Thanks again to the good people of Common Ground. Thank you for standing with me, and thank you for your commitment to clean water.
Thank you, Steve, for your courage to bring this forward, for your public service to our community, and your commitment to protect the precious resource of Lake Michigan. Thank you. I'm Mary Ginnabaugh, and I'm a member of Emmanuel Presbyterian Church. I'm a volunteer leader with Common Ground, and I'm a lifetime environmentalist. When our team at Common Ground leaders started researching the claims in Steve's letter, we didn't know what we would find. We didn't know if we would find evidence that what he was reporting was true or they were refuting those claims. But over the last 5 months, we've interviewed 16 different people who were current or former MMSD and Veolia employees. And they spoke to us under anonymity, and we asked several to testify today because, and they would not because they were fearful of either losing their jobs or losing their benefits. So our compromise was to share some of their most significant concerns. So I invite our environmental research members to come forward to read some of the quotes of those interviews.
Good evening, my name is Mike Karolevich. I'm from St. Martin of Tours Parish in Franklin, Wisconsin. We asked our sources, does the South Shore wastewater plant run at peak capacity? Quote, South Shore does not run at peak efficiency during storms. Quote, South Shore does not run at full capacity ever. These quotes are easily verifiable by looking at flow data during rainstorms, including the huge rainstorms we had 2 weeks ago, where our viewing showed that the South Shore plant never ran at more than 83% capacity, and in most cases ran in the 70% range, even as the deep tunnel was filling up. What this means is millions of gallons of excess sewage were dumped into the lake and or was backing up into our basements.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dawn Padilla, and I'm a volunteer with Common Ground and a member of St. Mark's Episcopal Church. So after that, we asked our sources, why is this happening? Our investigation uncovered 2 assertions about the reasons the plants do not run at full capacity. Number 1, a change in the chemical process to treat the sewage, as Steve had pointed out. And number 2, inadequate maintenance of equipment. Here are some quotes about these issues. First off, the chemicals. Quote, Veolia made major changes in the treatment process in 2017 to save themselves money without consulting MMSD engineers. When MMSD engineers discovered the change in the chemical process used for biosolids management, Veolia refused their demands to change back to the previously used process. And the next quote here, effluent standards, the amount of pollution allowed into the lake, were raised to allow Veolia to stay in contract compliance. Yeah. And quote, Veolia does not care about lake dumps. They say the mussels will eat the crap. Yeah.
It gets better. I'm kidding. Hi, everybody. Mark Peterson with the East Siders Group. Let's talk a little bit about maintenance issues that we heard about. When the equipment is not operated properly, the sewage that comes into the plants can't be treated quickly and effectively, which leads to overflows of untreated wastewater and basement backups. So here's some of the things we heard from current and former employees about maintenance. Quote, plant maintenance is in bad shape. Only 30% of preventative maintenance is being done. Quote, there used to be 4 pipe fitters working on maintenance. Now there's only 2. Quote, Veolia does malicious compliance with maintenance orders, and many orders are not done right. Some reports just disappear. Quote, half of the plant generators do not run properly. Quote, the whole maintenance system is designed in a way to run to fail. Veolia makes more money replacing equipment than maintaining equipment. And quote, the South Shore plant is unsafe for workers because of a lack of maintenance. And finally, we'll be addressing this, I think. Quote, Veolia has no incentive to do preventative maintenance.
The next part of our investigation was to see if this is happening in other cities. We decided to look to see if Milwaukee is the only one experiencing these kinds of problems with Veolia management practices. Jackson, Mississippi is one, and Flint, Michigan, which I'm sure many of us are familiar with, are 2 stories. Let me invite our national researchers forward to share a few stories.
I'm Sharon Depew from the First Unitarian Society, and I want to share my story of Jackson, Mississippi. In 2025, the city of Jackson, Mississippi's water utility ended their 10-year contract with Veolia to manage their wastewater operations due to costs and allegations of widespread wastewater discharges. Here's the story. Veolia signed a 10-year contract in 2017 with Jackson, Mississippi to manage their wastewater treatment plants and committed to helping the city comply with a consent decree for environmental violations. However, under Veolia's management, the city continued to dump billions, and that's with a B, billions of gallons of untreated or partially treated sewage into local waterways. Jackson ended its contract with Veolia in 2025 due to costs and alleged neglect of the wastewater system. The Jackson director of the system said that Veolia had not adequately maintained the sewage treatment facilities and pumping stations. Sound familiar? Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sue Jima with St. Catherine's Catholic Church, and I'm here to talk about the Flint, Michigan Veolia story. In 2014, the city of Flint changed their drinking water source from Detroit's utility to the Flint River. In 2015, the city of Flint hired Veolia to study the water system and provide recommendations on how to improve it. Well, Veolia failed to sound the alarm. Flint residents, as we all know, had to use bottled water for years because of high lead levels in the water system. Veolia was sued by the Michigan Attorney General as well as Flint residents for telling officials and the public that the water was essentially safe to drink, even while its own employees were concerned about possible lead in the water. Although never admitting any wrongdoing, Veolia settled multiple lawsuits for over $79 million in total, which went into a fund for compensating residents for the terrible harm they suffered.
Finally, you will see here on Zoom a familiar face to some of you. Our friend Pastor Thad Winkle, the former pastor of Bethel Bethany UCC in Sherman Park, who is now living in San Diego. Welcome, Pastor Thad. Do you want to tell our folks what's going on with Veolia in San Diego?
Hello, everybody. So great to feel connected with you this afternoon or this evening. As mentioned, my name is Thad. I am the former pastor of Bethel Bethany United Church of Christ in Sherman Park, a former steering committee member of Common Ground. Since moving to San Diego a few years ago, I now am working with an environmental justice organization here. San Diego, you may know, is right on the US-Mexico border. I'm currently about a 20-minute car ride from the border crossing. And there's a river called the Tijuana River, which runs across our border, and this is one of the most polluted waterways in the United States. And I'm actually here to introduce Laura Singleton, who's more capable of talking about Veolia's role in this environmental catastrophe. Laura is an attorney for Singleton Schreiber, who's currently suing Veolia for their role in the Tijuana River crisis. Laura now lives here in San Diego, like me, but she also moved here just a few years ago from Milwaukee, where she taught at Marquette and Marquette Law School. So Laura, thanks for being here and for sharing about what's happening in our border communities.
Thank you so much, Doug. Thank you. It's great to be here. Like Doug said, I'm a former Milwaukeeite. My heart definitely is still in Milwaukee, so I'm really happy to be here. So Veolia has been overseeing and maintaining the South Bay International Treatment Plant since operations began there in 1997. They've received a series of long-term contracts that are worth approximately $8.5 million a year. The plant is located just south of San Diego, and it's a joint U.S.-Mexico effort designed to treat the raw sewage coming from Tijuana through the Tijuana River before discharging it into the Pacific Ocean. So under their most recent contract, Veolia is responsible for all of the repairs that cost under $100,000. However, for repairs over $100,000, not only do they not have to pay for them, they get paid extra to do the work. So over the past 5 years, that extra has amounted to an additional $14.4 million. The contract provides a powerful financial incentive for Veolia to allow small repairs to pile up before fixing them. And that this incentive structure has contributed to a very poorly functioning plant. And then we've also had failing infrastructure in Tijuana, and then a series of severe weather events. So it's all come to a head recently, and there have been deteriorating conditions in the last several years. So as a result, the people in South Bay have been living in a progressively worsening crisis. Since 2018, Veolia has been in violation of their federal Clean Water Act permit well over 1,400 times. There's essentially an open sewer running through Imperial Beach, which is the community most closely located to this plant. Researchers have actually documented the aerosolization of raw sewage at multiple locations. So that means that not only is there raw sewage in the water that's coming through, but fecal matter and bacteria has been found in the air. So residents in this community are both breathing in raw sewage, and they're likely also breathing in the industrial waste from the manufacturing facilities that are located right over the border. So the water and the air are contaminated, and people are living under warnings that they have to stay inside, they have to close their windows, and it's so bad that the county is providing free air filters to people who live in the area. Children, the elderly, individuals with compromised medical conditions are the most vulnerable to these harmful effects, but everybody suffers both through the smell. It just, like when you drive down there, it smells, you can smell the sewage, but there's also beach closures. So although this crisis was not created by Veolia alone, Veolia has overseen the South Bay plant for 30 years. So it bears responsibility for failing to maintain and operate that facility in compliance with their obligations to local residents, federal law, and the U.S. taxpayer. And there are currently 5 separate lawsuits due to this situation. So like that said, my firm, Singleton Schreiber, is representing over 1,000 individuals in a lawsuit against Veolia for their failure to properly manage the plant. So we're hoping is that these lawsuits will put pressure on Veolia to fulfill its contractual obligations and to compensate residents of South Bay for bearing the brunt of the consequences of Veolia's failure